Okay, let's call a meeting, Tulsa County Budget Board, Monday, April 20th, order. Is minutes for our approval of March 16th, 2020 regular meeting. Approval.
Second.
Motion second, again.
Keith? Yes. Newberry?
Yes.
Regalado?
Yes.
Salee?
Yes.
Summer?
Yes.
Wright?
Yes. Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can now, thank you. Willis?
Yes.
Peters?
Yes. Item number 3, unfinished business. Word in it. There's a lot of it, but I'm not worried about it. Yeah, item number 4, action items. Discuss action budget vision. FY 2019-2020 appropriations.
Between March 12th and April 15th, we had budget appropriations totaling $5,512,777.36. Interfund transfers for your approval totaling $240,859. And budget transfers totaling $1,320,358.73.
Questions for Stephen? No, I entertain a motion.
Motion approved. Second.
Yes.
Keith? Yes. Newberry?
Yes.
Regalado?
Yes.
Salee?
Yes.
Summer?
Yes.
Wright?
Yes.
Willis?
Yes.
Peters?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, agenda item 4B, discuss and possible action, request to release general fund reserves. Thank you.
Yes, the budget division requires a 10% reserve to be released for Fund 1000, which is a general fund. The revenue is being collected 92% as of April the 14th, 2020.
Why don't we take all these at one time, all the reserves we're releasing, you asked them to be released. C and D, do C and D as well, take them all at one time.
Move to
You do it all.
approve all of them.
I have questions.
Yeah.
Mr. Simler, do you have any, or one of your staff, able to talk about where we are in terms of collections this year versus where we normally are?
Yeah, and I looked at it this morning, and I'm sorry that I don't recall specifically where we are, but, the governor bumped back the due date to March, end of March to the end of April. We're right at 1.5% less collected than we were at this same time last year. I do remember that spread, but I just don't remember at 94, 95 and a half, but we're in the 90s.
Are there still, do we still have steady checks coming in?
Well, at the end of we never get 100% collected. There's always about 3.5 to 4% that ends up in delaying for a year or two. But yeah, I mean, the flow is still there. The flow is still there. And I believe, based on the flow that we're seeing, that by the time we get to the end of April, that we will be at the same point we typically are at the end of March.
Great, thank you.
Yes, sir.
The council would like to take up the release of funds for the general fund, highway fund, and discuss it all at one time.
Yes, okay, sure. For highway fund was collected 96% as of April the 14th. And for visual inspection, it was collected 99.9% as of April the 7th.
Questions? About these three? I entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Motion second.
Keith?
This be voting on items 4, B, C, and D.
Keith? Yes. Newberry?
Yes.
Regalado?
Yes.
Salee?
Yes.
Summer?
Yes.
Wright?
Yes.
Willis?
Yes.
Peters?
Yes. Agenda item 4E, discuss a possible action, equalization board request for special session through July 31st.
Move approval.
Second. Any questions, comments, questions? Seeing none, Roseanne?
Keith? Yes. Newberry?
Yes.
Regalado?
Yes.
Salee?
Yes.
Summer?
Yes.
Wright?
Yes.
Willis?
Yes.
Peters?
Yes. Item 4F, discuss possible action with compensation study adjustment for DOCC divisions. Start talking. Let's know if you can hear her when she starts talking, okay?
I am here to answer any questions that you have about the compensation study. We had enlisted Gallagher benefits to do a compensation study for the DOCC division. We also did some positions for the sheriff and some positions for the county clerk and a position for the assessor. We had looked at our start rates and then also our pay ranges. We were looking at our job evaluation tool and then we were looking to reclassify jobs if they didn't match other jobs that were similar duties. So the compensation analysis came back and we're recommending raising our start rate to $1,906.67 per month, and that is equivalent to $11 an hour with our lowest EOCC full-time job. We want to revise our grade minimum start rates to align better with the market. It's a small adjustment to the start rates. Then we also want to tighten the pay range spread by 2% at the top and the bottom for pay grades in the trades, and also pay grades up through pay grade 60, I believe, or 70, and then reclassify some jobs. I'll use an example. We had a cook position at juvenile and a cook position at social services. Both the cooks were not in the same pay grade. So we made recommendations to have those cooks align in the same pay grade. There was also some 4 positions that Sherry Carrier had. There were similar positions that the sheriff has, with certification adjustments in those, and then making some adjustments where the jobs didn't make sense. We've got quite a few of parks. You'll notice on your spreadsheet that's where the largest percentage is. Those were the recommendations by the Gallagher consultant. And I prepared a spreadsheet for costs associated with that. I've gone over it with each one of the department directors. So they have a list of who it would affect. Not everyone's getting a pay change. It's mostly people in the lower salary position pay ranges that adjust the start rates. So, and then there is a little bit of compression at the beginning of the range where we make small adjustments into the range at the bottom of the ranges. So it does not affect all of our employees, it just affects some, and it helps us be more competitive with the market on our start rates for women. So, any questions?
Any departments you said they could not absorb this cost?
Yes. So Parks has quite a large ask. There's a lot of positions in Parks that need to be reevaluated of where the range is. All of the departments, with the exception of Juvenile Bureau, had $50,000 change, $50,193. They could absorb $15,000 of that in their current budget, so their ask is $35,193. Parks has the lion's share of the increases, and it's really looking at our lower paid Parks employees of making adjustments in some of those ranges. And with Parks having as many people as they do, it's the largest. I talked with Vince, and I believe that he can make approximately a $20,000 adjustment by taking that out of his current budget. So the ask is $100,540. We revise that down to $8,540. Social services is another department that wouldn't be able to absorb their changes. Of course, they have some very low paid positions in their area that make adjustments to, and their ask is $14,421. So the original amount needed to do the compensation study, and I've gotten with me to look at FICA retirement and the PEP, and that revised amount would be $130,154. So that would be the amount of money do all of those items.
For the full year at 5/21.
Yes, you could start July 1st.
Question. Good, John. Questions? I guess it's easy for you to celebrate by. Yes, Michael?
Michael.
Well, I just want to mention that I appreciate the fact that there was a fair amount of work that went into a discussion of who could potentially absorb these costs and who couldn't. Clearly, we're going to be in strange economic times for a while, and we'll get into some of the budget-related items later, but I think it's important that we get these jobs kind of squared away, do this housekeeping, so I'll move that we approve this.
Second.
More questions or comments? Kathy?
My only comment was, to the extent that they can be absorbed, I can support it. But I don't know that I want to go out and vote for increasing areas that cannot support it, given that we know we're in for a very difficult time economically. Because if you go ahead and approve this, you're going to bake those increases into your base budget for funding now and for the foreseeable future. Certainly the city of Tulsa is having to make some cuts, and a lot of our constituents are outright losing their jobs. So I don't know that this is a time when I would want to approve an increase for spending in departments where that department cannot absorb the increase. To the extent the department can absorb the increase, I would support it, but not, for me at least, not beyond there.
I think you get into conversation, which costs more turnover or putting in wages for people on the payroll.
And that's a legitimate concern. I'm always concerned about the cost of turnover. But at the same time, given the Depression era unemployment rate, anyway, I've made my comments and you just
Questions, comments? Yes.
Has this been built into the next fiscal year, or is this, are we
Voting on.
moving into these?
It has no building yet until it's being approved.
So we need to add this to this as well.
Just out of curiosity, when we talk about turnover rate and costs associated in that study, does it show who has the highest turnover rate? What part of the county?
A lot of our problems are in the parks area. I mean, we have a lot of turnover in other areas, but this leads the way in turnover. Linda also struggles with some entry-level jobs as well. Juvenile has a hard time with some of their positions, and a lot of the identified problems were in the areas that have the largest turnover. When we looked at our midpoints, were actually not too bad. Our midpoints were pretty right on. It's our start rates that are the problem. And some of our lower grade positions. So when you're competing with other jobs in the market, for example, when you're quite a bit less than what the market could pay for that, they take the job, they work in it for a while and they leave. So we have constant turnover in some of those lower positions, and that's where you see the biggest problem. For example, in my area, I just had one tiny little change. It was $500. I can absorb that. That's no problem.
And are these positions that have been deemed, I hate using this word, but are essential to the functioning of each of those departments?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, then you question whether that department's essential in the first place, right?
Correct. Yes, because I think that's slightly different than, for instance, the jail, where our turnover rate has approached or has elevated past 50% at some point. And those are absolutely essential for the running of that jail.
Questions, comments, Kathy? Motion second, Georgia.
Keith,
Yes.
Newberry,
Yes.
Regalado,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Summer,
No.
Ray,
yes,
Willis,
Yes.
Peters.
Yes. Carried. Item 4G, discuss possible action. COVID-19 related CARES fund and impact of Tulsa County. Sure.
Well, since this is the first time that I've done this report for you, some of you may know more about this than others, so I think it's important that you all know where we are, because the battle against COVID-19 is about to shift from just the healthcare profession to the people in the government, because the money is going to start coming to the state, county, and cities, and they expect us and the people in the government to step up and do more than we've done, and that's why they're sending this money. You know, they appropriated $139 billion was for what they call local government, state, counties, and cities. They said every state, at a minimum, every state will get 1.2 billion, not less, you get 1.2 billion. And we will add to that whatever percentage of Americans live in your state. 12% of the Americans live in Oklahoma. So we got to bump up on that 1.2 million to 1.5 billion, 1.5 billion. That's what Oklahoma was awarded, 1.5 billion. Now that money flows one of two ways from Washington. There's two paths. There's a path called the direct pay, and there's a path called state allocation. Direct pay is to any eligible local unit of government of 500,000 people or more. That's what eligible local unit of government means. 500,000 people or more. Those people, those entities, and there's 171 of them in the country, will get a direct pay from the Department of Treasury. If you're not one of those, then you get the second path, and that money goes to your state, and you get your money from the governor's office. Two paths. Direct pay, 500,000 and more. If you're under 500,000, it goes to the governor, and his job is then to take care of the state's needs, the other 596 cities in Oklahoma, and the other 75 counties in Oklahoma. They all got to go to him to get whatever formula they come up with. So they take the bigger counties, which we have two, they take that right off the top. So they take that off of the 1.5 billion. And they say, you two get paid first. That leaves the state with about 1.2 billion. That's what the state will have for all the rest of the governments that don't get a direct pay. Like Tulsa, or Coweta, or whatever size there is, for whatever reason, 500,000 was the number they picked. Now, if you're a place that's got two entities that claim that, then those two got to figure out how to divide it. And there's 26 of those in the country, like Oklahoma City and Oklahoma County. Oklahoma County has about 850,000. Oklahoma City has like 650,000. They both should get direct pay, but they're not going to pay them both a higher amount. They're going to have to work that out between the two of them. We don't have that problem. We don't have anybody competing that's got 500,000 or more population. So that's going to come straight to us. So everybody will get money. It's just, where do you go to get it? And the law that was passed and signed by the president on March 27th said the money had to be distributed in 30 days or less. So by this time next week, the money has to be distributed. Why? And to prepare for that, last week the commissioners had to approve a certification and send it to the Department of Treasury, basically saying, we promise to uphold these three conditions when we spend this money. Condition number one is that the expenses occurred between March 1st and December 30th of this year. That the expenditures were not things we had budgeted, that but for the COVID pandemic, we wouldn't have done this. But because of the pandemic, we spent the money. Those two are easy. It's the third one. It's the third right here. You have to show that it's a necessary expenditure related to the public health crisis. That'll be easy. Some cases that might be harder. But ultimately, the decision of that is the three commissioners. That was part of the certification that they had to sign. So this is not a reimbursement thing. You get all the money. They don't challenge you or question you. You don't need your approval every single thing you purchase. But in a year from now, or so, or two, when the Inspector General from the Treasury Department comes back to audit, we've got to be able to say that we can make the case for every three of those conditions. We didn't have the money. It was between March and December. It was a necessary expenditure for this crisis. Now, by the 24th of this month, Friday, the Department of Treasury is supposed to put out a little more eligibility guidance. Because that's the question I get asked the most by everybody. You know, beyond the obvious, like face masks, people want everything. And so I put together, I had 2 pages, about 15 questions. And just by happenstance on Friday, Senator Langford called me and said, "Do you guys have any issues? I'm meeting Monday with the Treasury Department in the White House to talk about guidance documents." I said, "Well, yeah, I've got 2 pages of questions." So I sent him the questions so that he could ask them, because the people in Treasury can't possibly fathom everything that every county will face. They can't. My hunch is going to be is that they're going to tell people, well, just look at what the CDC says to do, or look at what FEMA says to do, or look at what the Department of Labor says to do, which, you know, are all these kind of documents which you can get, and they tell you what to do. If you want to mitigate it, or fight it, or improve on it, you know, those are available. I don't know what the state is going to do, how they're going to apportion theirs, if they're going to do the same thing like the federal government did and say, we'll just bust up our pie by population percentage too. But the state also has to take care of the state. So if there are needs for the Department of Corrections, the Oklahoma Emergency Management Department, the J prisons, that money has to come out of that 1.2 billion. Besides all the other needs that the other counties and the other cities have. They are actually sub-grantees of the state. So I think where some confusion came, that I've heard, I think Michael Sort of you may have heard, is that the city of Tulsa thought that when we got this money, we were supposed to divide it between the 10 cities in the county. No, it doesn't work like that. Because we overlap. They thought we overlapped. They thought overlap meant, well, if I'm a citizen of Coweta or I'm a citizen of Broken Arrow, I'm also a citizen of Tulsa County. Doesn't that mean overlap? No, that's not what overlap is. Overlap is what you have in Oklahoma City and Oklahoma County, where you have 2 500,000 populations on top of each other. That's overlap. We don't have any overlap. You know, lots of other places do in this country, but we don't. So the guidance is very clear that unless you've got 2 of those, you have 1 direct pay, and the rest go down to the Capitol and ask for a part of that $1.2 billion that Budget Director Mike Mazie will be responsible for. He'll decide how that's going to be divided. The commissioners will have to, you know, establish a process for accepting or asking for ideas, what people want. We have 23 entities that I've talked to. There's some I'm not quite clear whether the county's responsible for it or somebody else is responsible for it. For instance, I asked Don today, does the Supreme Court or the Administrative Office of Courts, will it help you? No. I'm trying to find out the same answer from the district attorney and the public defender. The only one I talked to that says we don't need any help at all is OSU Extension. They said OSU is taking care of us. But, you know, we've got county, we've got county and city, we've got county and, you know, other units, we've got Expo Square. We've got some that are jointly funded like TEMA. We have some like the health department, which neither the city or county fund. And according to their CFO, they've already spent $250,000 in expenses in just 2 months. And they expect they need another $4 million. This money went into the Department of Justice And there's a grant process just for sheriffs and jails. They set aside about $73,000, and Christina and Trey and I have talked about, go get it. I mean, it's sitting there for you, because they break all this down by county and tell you what every county is gonna get. So once the dollars will be wired to the treasurer, and then the budgeting department will figure out a way that how it gets allocated, the commissioners will decide whose requests get funded. If you don't spend it by the end of December, you have to give it back. One of the questions I asked them is, okay, can we encumber it and it goes into 2021? So what if we sign a contract with Turnkey in June and it goes till next May? Because they need some COVID specialists in there. That was one of the questions that's on my list. If we can, if the commissioners can we help other cities in the county if they do need our help? I mean, let's say one of the smaller county cities, and they go by population. So let's say it's Turley, and Turley doesn't get much money, and they say, you know, we're grateful for it, but you know, we could use some more help. I don't know if you're allowed to do that. That's one of the questions. Or do you want to do?
How about loss of revenue?
Not yet. So here's the deal. The bill right now, today, the House is supposed to pass COVID-19 3.1 plan. And to their credit, the National Association of Governors, the National Conference of Mayors, and NACO all came together to ask for lost revenue. Because there are a lot of states where counties run on just sales tax. In fact, in 27 of those counties, they've already furloughed county employees. So there's a lot of counties like that, and they ask for more. The Democrats are all for that. The Republicans said, no, not this, we just gave you 250 days. So let's wait and see what you do with that money. But there's going to be another one after this week. So they're not done packaging packages. There's going to be another one coming. And that's what the key one in there is loss of revenue. And we've had
some money to pay for the printing press.
Yeah. I mean, we've had some expos lost money. People, the entities that we have lost
Yeah,
money.
we'll be able to tell you when you start losing revenue because of COVID.
That's right. So, I still got emails even as much as an hour ago where NACO is still asking us to reach out to our congressmen, like they think there's some hope still that in what they vote on this week will have revenue. But everything I read yesterday said that those three big entities made good points, but this package is supposed to be hospitals, testing, you know, and the small business paycheck, whatever it's broke already, and we put money back in that. So I think there's going to be another one after this one. It might have revenue.
Yeah, let's open up for questions. Questions, comments, Jerry? Michael?
Just maybe a comment to the group related to this, you know, I've at least scrubbed through a lot of our budget information. And I think there are things that are either in the budget now or will be contemplated for the budget that will be, you know, potential candidates for some of these funds coming down. So by the time we get some guidance, hopefully this Friday, you know, our intent was to have a special budget board meeting on May the 4th, where we could really get into some of the meat of the budget requests that have come through after some of this stuff kind of shakes out. I just ask everyone to kind of join me in scrubbing through the list of asks and different things that are in different departments' requests to see, you know, what we can kind of scrub out, what things might that we could look at as response efforts in utilizing some of these funds.
Also, so we, as much as possible, make sure it's one-time spending stuff. Here.
The one thing that's important here that was on the VOCC agenda is that when the governor declares a state of emergency, then you're allowed to suspend the bidding requirement for purchasing. And you can adopt a fast track. And it's only good for 30 days. Today they did it, or it goes till May 7th. So just about the time the county money is arriving, and maybe some of these departments are wanting to spend it, if the emergency is still in place, the VOCC maybe want to extend that another 30 days.
Anybody ask, we put this in interest bearing account? We keep the interest.
That was one of the questions, wasn't it, Terry?
Yes, that was one of the questions. Go ahead. I also asked them, which I think I know the answer, can we take your money and match it to get your money? Because some of them are matching requirements, like the election board, that's top of their list. There's only 400 million for the whole country, it goes to the state, but the state has to get $1 million match from the legislature. The legislature is kind of balking at that right now. And so the selection board secretary said, if you guys can help, just help your own election board do it. Because you don't know what to tell you, but they're going to have a lot of public encounter. The one thing I will tell you about all this when we're thinking about how to spend it is that because this money is supposed to be looking forward, they stress over and over again, safety, safety, safety. Whatever you spend it on, think, does this make my employees safe? Does this make the citizens of the encounter safe? Does it make the inmates safe? That's the whole thing. They're trying to slow it down at the back end this fall. So everything we're doing.
I know you, Michael, and his staff been working on electronic form that could capture these expenses and put in why they were made, and all that the other elected officials, folks have those forms as well.
They're going to. Michael's got the coding, which is good. The forms that I put together is that you have to keep a record of the purpose and have to actually write out the purpose. And that form is done, and all of the bookkeepers have all.
So I'm sending out to Christina, and then she'll be able to have it used.
Yeah, and it's so simple. You can 5 minutes, you just save it, and send it, you save it, and it's just a record where you've answered those 3 questions. I didn't budget for it. It happened since March, and it was related to COVID. Yes, yes. That's it. Because the most important thing you want to do is, or in my mind is that I want to make sure when these 3 make a decision that says you can have that.
So Stanley signed his name to it.
Yeah.
What do you say you look best in the world?
I want them with it.
Yeah, it's all one to be one.
Yeah, that basic stuff. Thanks, Eric. I love working on this. Good job. Okay. 4H, discuss the possible action, request to approve amendment to FFCRA paid sick leave, expanded FMLA leave, qualified employee policy, CCP, healthcare policy 107-1. I believe we pay on page 407, item 9D, was changed. Michael, you were going to speak to this?
Sure. The Board of County Commissioners last Monday passed the original version of this policy and then amended it at a special meeting Thursday, Wednesday. There were a couple things that we were trying to track in regard to payroll, and what we didn't want to do. We want to make sure everyone gets their full pay. We also didn't want to skirt around this law to add hours to someone's paycheck to sort of falsely replicate their 100% pay. So that's the point of this change. And in some discussions with Doug Wilson, we thought it'd be a good idea to have the budget board look at this as well, even though the BOCC has approved it. It'd be nice to have the budget board look at it, consider it, hopefully approve it. So all, I guess, with the BOCC and the other 5 at-large county official offices will all be on the same page for the usage of this policy, which will be administered by my office through payroll. So, I would ask that you consider approving this.
Under this new legislation's law, that they will receive a percent, less than 100% of their pay.
For someone who's directly impacted, as in they have contracted the coronavirus, they are given their full rate of pay, and the emergency pay that's created here, or emergency pay leave that is here, is I think 10 weeks long. For someone that is on FMLA or taking care of a dependent, because of some issue created by the coronavirus, whether it's a school closure, daycare closure, or something like that, then it allows for pay in the amount of 67% of that person's regular pay for that time period. So we are happy to have people utilize personal time or vacation time to make up for some of those gaps. But if someone wants to just take a month off and utilize this emergency pay, that month will be paid 67% of their regular time. If someone takes 2 weeks of that time and then comes into work or decides to use their personal leave for 2 weeks, then only that 2 weeks would be rated at that 2/3 pay. I know this is confusing, but the amount of time taken of the emergency leave would be utilized at the 2/3 pay, and any other time taken, whether it's administrative leave or whether it's personal or vacation time, would be applied at the 100%, just like you're taking a normal day off or week off or whatever. So,
Everything got those right, didn't it?
Kathy, was that right in the?
So just to clarify how I said it to people to make it, try and make it as easy to understand is if you get sick or you have a doctor's note that for you to stay home because of COVID-19, you get 100% of your pay for 80 hours. If you are quarantined or you have daycare issue or some other illness, you can get up to 2/3 of your pay for 80 hours. And then the only one that is expanded economically is the daycare. And that's for up to 10 weeks. The first 2 weeks are unpaid, and then 2/3 of your pay is for.
Question, comments for Kathy or
Clear as mud, right?
Pretty good.
My only concern is, we haven't been operating under this already. I don't want to go back and try to retroactively reconstruct, so I'd like to have a set date and have the policy going forward instead of trying to go back and construct who was in, who was out, who was sick, who wasn't sick, who was out just because we closed out.
So, I'm sorry, go ahead.
That's right.
I was just gonna say, at this point, we've been operating as a county under the emergency resolution the BOCC passed a number of weeks ago, which I know my operation best described, but it's something similar to what we've done. We have sent people home specifically to not come to work for COVID-related reasons. Maybe they're not impacted by it, but we've had people work from home or just not come to work because of social distancing and all that kind of stuff. As long as we're operating under that resolution, we really don't have to worry too much about that issue. But if you have someone that calls in and they tested positive or they think they have a doctor's note or whatever, that's when you could employ this. Does that make sense?
So you're picking up on it.
As another clarification on the date, this shouldn't go into effect until April 1st, and we've not paid the full payroll yet.
Right.
So we were paying possibly in a different method previously in March, and April 1st and forward, we tried to explain that to timekeepers and anyone that has been off.
Now, this issue has been explained to most of the bookkeepers. Bookkeepers are all pretty much on the same page. I think what came up was a couple of questions from a few departments, and frankly, the one that came up that recurred a few times in the health department. And I had some conversation with Dr. Dart last week, and I think he's squared away, and we're all squared away. We just wanted to make sure that all of our offices of the county were looking at this, and there was a policy to back up what we had emailed out last week.
Point, and this is partly for you as well, Barry. So what you just talked about does not apply to our first responders, only our civilian workers, right? We've already had one that's become COVID-19 positive, okay? Out of time and basically was screwed. I made the decision to go ahead and give her the 2 weeks, okay? But my point being is, one, is that fall under any type of, is that considered a reimbursement, or is that something that can be paid through the money coming from?
I would think it's a reimbursement. That's the kind of questions I've asked about personnel. It's the covering personnel cost, because it's not revenue. I mean, they're clearer about what it doesn't cover, like revenue, and not clear at all about what it does, except that it was expense incurred as a result of the COVID-19 public health pandemic. That's verbatim.
So if you exceed your budget in that area because of COVID, it's covered.
My point is that although it's covered for the state, it was only suggested that counties and cities follow suit. We've had one, doesn't mean we're not gonna have a flood of them. And if I do one, I do the other, which, to your point, may exceed budgetary, or cause the budgetary issues. But again, I'm under the hopefully presumption or assumption that will be covered in time. But I think it's something that you need to be aware of.
I think just remind Christina, this applies to this new tractor.
We are documenting and over documenting.
I would over document, because if it get late and we say it, I don't think that covers, and okay, you'll get 9% of it.
And Vic, I can tell you from reading it, there's certain words that you want to use, because the more I read this stuff, the more you see the same words mentioned, like, so what does necessary mean? And they'll use 5 or 6 different synonyms, but they all mean necessary. And so if I'm an auditor and I'm reading, that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for you to say, mandated, urgent, requirement, imperative, preemptive, all of these things that might mean necessary.
Well, I think first responders encompasses that already. But here's what I think we're gonna run into is the issue of did you contract the virus while on duty, and if so, how do you know? So for most, I anticipate we can backtrack, but for some, we may never know how you got it.
I don't think it matters. It's COVID related, whether it doesn't matter where you got it. Related to COVID.
I think for the general population, that will stand true. I think for first responders, as usual, we'll get screwed today. And I don't want to get screwed. Or I don't want the people working for me to get screwed. And I don't think you do either. But my point being is that I think this is something that you should consider, at least have in the back of your mind for the future.
Totally agree. And in our case, where we have people that are off or not working, we've had some people have to work overtime. I mean, that's something we're putting into the tracking as well. So I would think if I had to send someone home because they were sick or not having work, and I had someone refill that position, then that would be something I'd certainly.
Absolutely. That's what I'm saying. I think it's hopeful that falls under that, because our phone revenue will take a very serious hit on this because of the visitation and all that stuff, and things that we've had to adjust because of COVID, and overtime as well. So.
And I applaud your efforts. That is the right thing.
Comments, questions?
Move approval on the policy.
Second, further discussion? Virginia?
Keith? Yes. Newberry?
Yes.
Regalado?
Yes.
Salee?
Yes.
Sandler?
Yes.
Wright?
yes,
Willis?
Yes.
Peters?
Yes. Carries. 4J, discuss possible action budget revision, 2021 budget.
I'd like to briefly go over the budget overview and analysis of Tulsa County General Fund for fiscal year 2021. We provided guidance for budget for action for this year, and fiscal year 2021 budget targets were increased for known items for $190,000. However, we still came under the guidance total of $80,076,000. And due to the COVID-19, we can anticipate a possible negative impact on our budgets, such as earned interest, It's going to be a serious shortfall of revenue streams. We expect the interest earning to be around $150,000. Currently, a budget for earned interest is $800,000 and have collected $1.33 million as of today. So it is quite dropped from current year. Also, we could see the reduction of the other collection from the retail and commercial property. I guess we could be looking at $3.4 million decrease in other collections. We also foresee the negative impact on the sales tax collection, which could largely affect the operation of jail and mental health. As to target overrun, total requests are $4.7 million in aggregate. And total wage benefits for general fund employees are $48,789,000, which is equivalent to about 60% of total general fund budget. So if you could move on to the report analysis of Tulsa County 211. So fund balance 6/30/2019. This is like our starting point, which was $20,550,462. And after projected revenue and expenditure, our projected fund balance as of June 30th, 2020 will be $19,020,546, which will be our beginning fund balance of July 1st, 2020, which is fiscal year 2021, which is under the projected fund balance in the square. And so our starting point is $19,020,546. Submitted budget without additional requests is $80,749,896. Additional request of 4.6. If we agree with everything that's been asked, then our budgeted expenditure for 2021 will be $85,434,150. And our budget revenue for next fiscal year is $67,569,417. In order to balance the budget, we have to use a fund balance of $17,864,733. That will leave us with 1.155 as of June 30, 2021. Questions?
Budget good.
And we have utilized, as far as revenue budget goes, we have used slightly different calculation method for other taxes. In the past, we have used the valuation method. So we get valuation from assessor's office, and we figured it out, and we get we gave a current other taxes budget. However, this year we have used, after the audit was completed, they suggested to use their method. And when we apply that method, we have about $4 to $6 million short in budget for the other taxes. So that could, if we use that old method, I could see our project fund balance possibly between $5 to $7 million instead of 1.155. I just wanted to point it out.
And as a clarification, that $5 to $6 million difference in the methods we utilize does not mean we're going to collect less money next year. It just means that the state auditor's office has asked us to, I guess, budget our revenues the way they want them budgeted, which is utilizing the actual collections of 2 fiscal years ago, correct?
Yes.
So at the end of the year next year, we fully expect we will collect $4 to $6 million more than what we put in the revenue budget, but to fall in line with what they've asked us to do in terms of publishing our budget numbers, that's the direction we need to go. So it's, the numbers are on one side or the other, the real numbers don't really change. It's just a matter of what the actual budget's showing, and thankfully, we have fund balance, that rolls from year to year that allows us to be able to utilize, you know, if we had to 17, almost $18 million worth of fund balance to make up for the difference of not being able to budget that extra $4 to $6 million we would normally budget based on what our friends in the assessor's office sends us for our tax levy information.
Questions, comments, from Lacy? Thank you. So for Jay.
So I also wanted to mention, I mentioned earlier that we're planning to have the special budget board meeting on May the 4th. And through looking at all the information we have to right now, there's a whole lot of unanswered questions. I hope that I think almost every budget board member has gotten through their nice yellow and green and pink and blue books. And I think everyone has submitted, or lots of people have submitted questions that are going out. There's going to be supplemental information to take up here, but I brought my list of target overruns, and you know, there's a lot of these that it's going to be a tough year. I think we need to be prepared for that. I think for the folks outside of Tulsa County who are calling us, like River Parks, maybe even NCOG, the public defender to a degree, maybe even the VA. Some of these are going to be pretty tough. I mean, and I hate to pick on one, but as I'm looking at the River Parks asking for $513,000, part of that for special flood donation, part of it general operating. I mean, we're going to have a really difficult time taking care of our own direct stuff here. So, I think
Question on that, 500,000 for flood relief, correct? Isn't that not, does that not going to be supplemented in one way or another by federal government? Or FEMA, or is there, how is that?
I can't speak to the River Parks flood relief. I mean, I think that's a question we may need to ask.
Yeah,
The River Parks Authority, I know that with our own flood relief for the county, we spent about $2 million, Miyuki, out of county budget last year on the flood.
Yes, for the flood, yes.
For the flood last year. And thus far, we have received, I think, I heard of one $10,000 check that we received back from FEMA to reimburse our flood efforts for last year. So I don't know if River Parks made a reimbursement request or what. I mean, that's something we need to examine, but regardless, I just don't see a way possible that we can afford $500,000 out of our budget to donate for flood relief. And I'm sorry for that, it's just not possible. But I've talked to a couple of you about the potential of the need to be super conservative in this budget next year. I think all of us were hoping to budget raises. I know the sheriff's office put in target overrun request. There was information in the budget on the overrun request documents about potential salary increases for DOCC divisions and juvenile and procurement. And I know that, you know, my office would appreciate, and I'm sure Dennis's and John's and Don's would appreciate additional budget dollars for raises, but I would like to ask everyone to consider holding off on those for next year, and maybe we can re-examine that in the fall when we see kind of where we are economically and environmentally. And then just overall, I know this is given the core services that we operate with. Everything we do, you know, quote unquote, is core. Some is more core than others. So we're going to have to be cognizant of that for next year. As we get more guidance on this federal stuff, I think Terry will certainly be in contact. I will. And if we can do whatever we can do to bolster our actual fund balance for the end of this year, which means basically if you have a way to not spend money on something, or seek reimbursement. I mean, I know in our case, we were gonna have overtime, laptops, a bunch of other materials we budgeted for that hopefully be reimbursed, which will help bolster fund balances. Anything that you don't spend is gonna be better for our fund balance for next year, which would give us probably more ability to consider raises starting in the fall and winter time for next year. So those are just my little tidbits that I wanted to mention as I'm looking at all the stuff that's coming in and going out of Yuki's shop in the budget division, and just hope that we can be as conservative as possible, because I don't want us to be in the unenviable position that the city of Tulsa is in and will continue to be in for quite a while. So that's kind of where I'm coming from.
Let me add on to that real quick, and we've all, speaking on behalf of the sheriff's office, I think we've proven we've always are a team player and willing to be a team player, but there's an argument to that, especially when it comes to the races. Two problems, and I'll be very brief. It's probably not that we won't go into this yet, but for first responders, again, I want to remind you, we didn't have the luxury of working from home. They came here. They are continuing to put their physical health, well-being, and their families, because of the very fact they're still at work, they're still in jail. That's their job, they understand that, okay? But the issue I would have in explaining to them, okay, is that I'm not going to give you a raise because we are potentially facing financial difficulties. I think they'll understand that. What they won't understand is why we would continue to fund those entities that are not constitutionally mandated, especially during this period of time. And I think now, to just cut to the cheese here, is it's a time to really take a very good look as to how we are funding those, again, those entities, at least for now. And I'm a park person. I made that comment in the past. I'm an OSU extension. Wonderful. But right now, we are hitting times that, quite frankly, we cannot continue to go down that path that we have been on for so long, especially right now. And again, I can't fathom going back and going, no raises, but we're going to continue to spend money on these entities that we don't have no bearing, at least right now, to spend money on. I can feed it, I can sell it and say, look, we're coming into an economic downturn potentially. We need to be prepared as a county as a whole. We're going to do our part. Not if we continue to spend the money on these, again, on these entities that right now, quite frankly, I don't think we can afford to anymore. My 2 cents.
Yes. Okay, now, third. Legislative report. Keep it brief, you know it's gonna change tomorrow anyway.
I don't think I mentioned when I was up there before, I don't think I told you how much money we are getting. I've seen this number several times. I think this is the number. It's $113,697,000. And that wouldn't include the money you saw intended for CDBG. It wouldn't include grant money. That's, a little side pocket. But just figure $114 million. So the legislature adjourned about a month ago, spring break, and it never really came back. They've come back for special emergency things, but there really haven't been work during perpetual recess. So last week, out of the blue, I got a call from Majority Leader John Eccles to tell me, he said, I do want you to know what I think we are going to try to do. He said, I think we will, because we've been working behind the scenes still on the budget, I think the first week, second week of May at the latest, we will have the budget done. And then our plan is, at least until the last Friday of May, conditions considered in the capital, we will try to take up policy bills. We have 1,000 of them. And we're going to have to focus on those that focus on economic development and health. Now, we may get to 30 a week, we may get to 100 a week. But in order to expedite this, we're going to skip the entire committee process. No bills go to committees. So if like we have 8 bills that came past the Senate. Normally we go to a House committee, then the House floor. Well, now they're just going to go straight to the floor. If they're on the list, to go straight to the floor. And the Senate's going to do the same thing. They just cut out, for the month they lost, they gave up that whole month wasted on committee work. So they they kind of think they're back on track by doing that. Now, what bills it's gonna be, we don't know. He did ask me to ask the commissioner to send in a list of our bills again, 6 or 7 that we have that passed the Senate that are over in the House. They probably, not all of them, but some of them probably will make it to the floor if we keep pushing the leadership of the people. We have 23 reps from Tulsa County. We keep telling them which ones of ours are most important. So they're not done. They're gonna get some policy work done. And then when they adjourn, they're done. They're not coming back in the summer. They're not coming back in the fall. They're not coming back until February. So there is a little bit of light in the legislature left. I don't think they're going to open it up to the public. They're not going to open it up to lobbyists. They've had, as you know, a number of cases of COVID illness in the Capitol with the staff and the legislators, several legislators. So I think they're going to try to do it quick and easy. They now allow proxy voting, so you don't have to drive from Durant, vote from Durant. So without the committee work, they may actually get more done than they've gotten done in the past if they'll just zoom it ahead and budgets out of the way. So I'll let you know what happens by May 1st.
Questions, comments there? Okay, Chairman, before I have none. 5 new business, I know it. Motion to adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?